And so, just like that, I did it. I did it actually twice. So just like that, in front of you, I opened the FIDE results I've just received. The only exam in Switzerland that you can take to prove the language proficiency. And so actually, indeed, I did it twice. I completed a certification in French and in German. And as you can see in my case, I managed to get the maximum score in this exam, which is the level of B1. And so the way it looks is exactly like that, is a language passport. So now I have two. The first one only contains German, since that was the first language I completed. And then I received this updated version with German and French at the same time. In addition to language passport, that's how they call it, you also get the transcript of your results. But indeed, this video will be all things FIDE exam. And since I've completed it twice in two different languages, I feel like I have something to share with you. I will cover absolutely zero basic information. This video will only be about my experience, my perspective, and things that I can share I wish I knew before I actually attended two of those exams. Alright, I hope you will enjoy the same way the game I will be playing today. You first enter the building, you give your name, you say I'm registered for the exam, they check you in, they give you the specific room number in which you will be taking your first part of the exam, and then you just sit and wait. You should come 10 to 15 minutes before the actual exam time. So once the time of the exam is there, you go into the room, you're being invited actually, and then they ask you to put away all your devices, the smartwatches, the phones, and in both cases, in German and in French, they insisted on me turning them completely off. They not only asked me whether I did it, but also wanted explicitly me to show that I did so. After you've completed this security check, you are then being invited to the table. And then they introduce you to the exam. They tell you all the rules, they tell you what will happen. And then, in my opinion, one of the most important parts, at least for me, was a self-introduction. And I think it is quite an important one. It's actually the only part of the exam which you can control, because you always know that they will ask you to introduce yourself. And you can actually learn and construct a self-introduction beforehand and rehearse it. And that's exactly what I did in both cases. Now, officially they say that this does not account towards the decision on which level you have, nor for the final grade. In my opinion, it still sets the tone for the further discussion, and I highly invite you to rehearse the self-introduction as well. At least it can give you a peace of mind. At least you can say to yourself, okay, I did the most I could, because the rest of the tasks are completely unknown. In any case, after that, the exam actually really starts, and it goes with the first task, which is on the A2 level. And normally you need to describe an image. So you are given a picture, and then they ask you, what do you see? Explain us. What is the situation? What are the emotions? Whatever you can say. And so you need to talk a lot. And so after this, they actually suggest a level that you can actually go for. And this is a very important distinction when it comes to the FIDE exam, because normally in most European languages, in those exams, for example, for French or German, you go to an exam for a specific level, for example, B1 or B2, and then the answer is whether you passed or failed. Here, it's completely different. They actually let you just enroll for the exam, and then you see which level you actually have. And so by completing the A2 task first, given the B1 is the maximum, they advise you to go either further for the task on B1, or kind of backwards for a task on A1. On the B1 part, the tasks were indeed much more challenging. They involved simulating dialogues, making hypotheses about certain things, expressing opinion and so forth. But in the end, I think I felt quite secure because every single time I was stopped at a certain point. I would talk and they would say, okay, thank you very much, we go to the next question. I think that's a good indicator, and I think in their eyes they view it as the fact that you can continuously talk and support the discussion and keep going. I think you should always try to do that. Never stop before they actually stop you. Then they say that this sub part of the exam is over, and this is an important part as well, is that this exam consists of two parts, the understanding and writing. So the first one, the understanding, is actually consists of two sub parts. So the speaking, the initial one which I took, and then it followed by understanding. That's when you listen to an audio and then you give an answer what you've heard. And so then they told me, okay, now you go to our colleague to the next room. In both cases it was always a different person. And so I went there, and then I was given a task again on a A2 B1 level. So they kind of communicated between each other, I guess, which level I'm supposed to be evaluated on. And another point on level as well is that you can actually change your mind. For example, you can always do that. If they advise you to go for a A2 B1 level, at any point you can then say, okay, you know what, actually I want to go on a lower level because for me it's too difficult. It's completely fine, you can do that. But if you want to go on a higher level despite the advice that they give you, for that you actually need to do one extra step. You will need to sign a form that you agree that it will be difficult. I'm not sure because it didn't happen to me, but that's what I heard from other people who took the exam. And so on the second part of the speaking or communicating part, let's put it this way, I was basically listening to a lot of audios. So at first it was again on A2 level. It was quite easy. It was multiple choice questions. So I was given like pictures or situations, I heard an audio, and then I was asked, okay, now ABC, which one corresponds to the audio? So it was quite easy. However, other activities in this part were more challenging because instead of giving ABC answer to the examinator, you actually had to tell your answer in words. So I will give a hypothetical example. It was not part of my exam, okay? Because they discovered that I make YouTube videos and they told me, don't tell the what we talk about here, only my experience. So imagine the situation is that the person, I don't know, broke a lamp, and then the question would be, what did he break? And you need to say a lamp. Now, it was much more difficult than that. It was not the lamp. I mean, I cannot tell, but it was super technical. It was a specific cookware instrument that broke. I'm not sure I know this word in any language of which I speak. And I somehow had to understand it in French and German, okay? But that was quite an experience. In any case, that's the format. You need to give back your answer in words. The examiner writes it down, and then he or she repeats it, and you confirm whether she heard it correctly. It happened to me in the German exam that actually I felt like I understood the answer. That's like, this word is there, that is the answer, but I've never heard this word before. I think it was in some Swiss German. And so I pronounce it without understanding what it is, and the examiner is like making this face as if this word doesn't exist. But yeah, I mean, I still got the grade I wanted, but that's sort of part of the experience, I guess. All right, now the understanding part is officially over and you can go for lunch break. The way it's normally done is that you do the first two sub-parts of understanding, I hope you're still with me, before lunch, and then you go for a break, which lasts a few hours. and then you are invited for the writing part. In both cases, in French and German, I called all my friends, told them I think I failed, I think this was the worst exam I've ever taken, because like you never know. In written part, you can understand if you know or you don't, because you read, you understand words or you don't. Here, you first of all start to forget what you mentioned, what you talked about, so don't even try to estimate your grade, just hope for the best. In any case, you arrive later for your written part of the exam, and it is actually only one part of it. So there's no sub-parts as if in the previous example of understanding. You just given the booklet, the small book in which you write. You are again being asked, are you sure you want to take this level? Do you feel comfortable? For example, in my case, A2, B1, I was like, yes, it's all fine. You're actually given time. They give you the book. You can read through the questions, and I think within first 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you are not allowed to write anything down, but it is at this moment that you can actually change your mind and exchange it if you want a lower difficulty. And then I started this part of the exam. It was quite challenging, especially the German part, because, you know, Germans, German-speaking people, I mean, they like those huge words that are made up of several words, but I mean, I learned it since I was 15, I guess, so for me it was fine, but still it was quite challenging because some tasks are easier, some tasks are more difficult. For example, there were like some administrative work, again without naming any examples, but for example, you would need to communicate with the government office on some sort of subject, and such discussions are normally quite challenging in terms of grammar. It's not as easy, let's put it this way, as to read a dialogue where a person buys something from a grocery shop. For this part, you don't need to actually take any of your supplies like pencils or pens, because they give you everything. And I think it's also part of the cheating prevention, because in both, I mean, I like my pen. I like to write with my pen, okay? I always take it with me. And in both cases, they took it out from me. They said, no, you cannot use it. And they gave me their own. Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to use my pen. Overall, the atmosphere is quite relaxed. I mean, I saw one girl crying, but that was an exception, because everybody was, I mean, everyone is stressed, okay? But in both cases, the language schools, the personnel, they try to be as nice as possible. Actually, both of them provided water, candies, like you could always, I think I took like 20 candies or so. I was so stressed, I ate sugar like crazy. In any case, they try to be nice. In the end, once you are done and you can go. But there is the third part to this exam. I know I mentioned two, but there is actually a third one, which is waiting. This is the most difficult one. In the case of German exam, I had to wait 3 weeks. That was actually within the official deadline. But for French, it was more, it was 4 weeks. But they also warned me in advance about that because it was around Christmas break. The other part is that you may not receive those results online. I mean, I showed this envelope, right? It was an experience in itself to wait for it. But that's part of the game, I guess. It makes the opening more interesting, I believe. If you are taking this exam, I wish you best of luck. If you're just curious what are we doing here in Switzerland, subscribe to my channel. I mean, I wish you all the best with my 2 language passports now. I think I can maybe make a giveaway of one because I don't need it anymore. If you would have any additional question regarding the FIDE exam and practically any other topic about life in Switzerland, leave it in the comments. I have an incredible community who will gladly answer, and me as well. I'm always reading all your comments and answer them to the best of my ability. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.